The Democratic primary for Ohio's 11th district is heating up, with progressives up against the Democratic establishment. Now, progressive Nina Turner is up against a corporate Democrat by the name of Shontel Brown, who has the backing of corporate Democrats, and I'll give you those details in just a second. But the New York Times just covered this race, and I wanted to share their framing on it, but also some of the information that we know regarding who's supporting what and where everyone stands on this particular race. First, an interesting excerpt from the New York Times piece. Democrats, there's no specificity here, just Democrats. Democrats say there is little broader significance to this individual House primary contest, one that pits two black women against each other in a safe Democratic district that had been represented by Marcia Fudge before she was confirmed as President Biden's Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. By the way, a position that Fudge, before being named for that position, thought she didn't want, because typically it just goes to someone who's black, when in reality she wanted to be in charge of like the agriculture department. Anyway, I wanted to give you guys that context. I think it's important. But with that said, what are your thoughts on that first excerpt that I read?
So why are we talking about it? I mean, this is what's amazing, right? You're like, oh, it's largely not important in the sort of the grand Democratic strategy, but we gotta stick it to the progressives and keep them in their place. Literally all, they're just admitting that it's not strategic, and yet hundreds of thousands of dollars from like moderate Democrats. I mean, is the DCCC involved at this point? And actually, pro-Israeli, forces in the United States have been just funneling money into Nina Turner's opponents. So that's all you need to know right there, is that actually they want other Democrats to lose. Meanwhile, progressives are always being told, oh, you hate unity. Why do you hate unity? Honey, Nina Turner was leading by double digits up until you funneled all that money into her opponent. So we were fine with unity before that. I think you're against unity anyway.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So, Nina Turner in her campaign had done a poll just to see where everyone stood in this race, and she was leading. I mean, Shontel Brown was so far behind, and that was when Hillary Clinton got involved and did her endorsement. At first, I was like, who cares? I mean, Hillary Clinton is not a popular figure, so if I were Nina Turner, I'd be elated about this. But Cenk made an important point, and I think he was right. That was Hillary Clinton essentially doing like a loud call to corporate Democrats and their funders to get involved in this race and show their support for Shontel Brown, and that's exactly what happened. So that excerpt that I read you from the New York Times was immediately followed with this. Yet in the final weeks of the campaign, the party establishment is throwing copious, this is correct, copious amounts of time and money into an effort to stop Ms. Turner, a fiery former Cleveland councilwoman and Ohio state senator. And let's be clear on the differences between Nina Turner and Shontel Brown. Nina Turner fights for everything that we experienced during the Bernie Sanders campaign, not just in 2016, but also in 2020. Medicare for all, a living wage, free college, all of the bread and butter issues that progressives find incredibly important. I think the majority of Americans find incredibly important, to be honest. Shontel Brown, though, even in this article, in the context of this legacy outlet, has made it clear, like she's just this laid back, won't go against the grain candidate. The Congressional Black Caucus's Political Action Committee, though, has endorsed Shontel Brown, that's Turner's main rival. The Cuyahoga County Democratic Party chairwoman, so have Hillary Clinton, and the highest-ranking black member of the House, Jim Clyburn, who will be campaigning this weekend for Brown. They argue that Brown is the better candidate with a unifying message, a reference that Francesca made a little earlier. But to be fair, Nina Turner also has backing. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York will be knocking on doors for her the same weekend Representative Clyburn will be in town. Bernie Sanders will join the fray in person the last weekend before the election. And I should also note that the Working Families Party is forming a PAC in order to provide some funding for Nina Turner Turner's campaign. They're going to give at least $150,000, but up to $200,000. We'll see what the end result is. But the money is one thing. I think the support is incredibly important. Getting people motivated and excited is incredibly important. And yeah, I mean, Nina Turner winning is very important. Okay, I don't think that electoral politics are the end all be all. In fact, I cringe anytime anyone tries to say that electoral politics are it's the most important thing, nothing else matters. No, grassroots organizing matters. Pressure from outside it matters, right? Like there needs to be this outside inside strategy. We need more labor unions. We need to empower labor. That's a huge part of the equation. Something that you talk about quite a bit, Francesca, and if you care to elaborate on it, I'd love to hear it.
Well, yeah, I think you're totally right about inside-outside strategy. And what this shows is that the Democratic Party is deathly afraid of the outside strategy. They are terrified of the grassroots, right? Whereas the Republican Party loves their grassroots. Oh, you've got extremist views, love it. Now, Democrats don't have extremist views, right? Like Democrats are like, hey, we want healthcare. Hey, we want a Green New Deal. You see how the Amazon's burning? Yeah. Stop that as soon as possible. Thanks. Hey, I want to live. I want to have a family and maybe grandchildren. Anyway, like that is seen as extreme. And I will also say this, Clyburn, man, getting involved once again, Clyburn. Oh, thank you, Mr. Middle of the Road. And here's what the lesson of 2020 is very interesting, and I'm curious what you think. But I feel like this says to us that Democrats are taking away from 2020 that once again, the way to go is middle of the road, is keep it safe, is don't cause too many waves. Republicans think that Joe Biden is a communist.
I know.
They think he is a socialist. It doesn't matter then if you put up an actual Democratic socialist, you're still gonna get the same critiques. And I would argue that look, I think getting headlines is good. If Nina Turner is in Congress, she'll get headlines and that will benefit the movements for all of the things that we're talking about and that we want to win. It's just that they're so afraid. And I don't know, I think my last point is, one thing that keeps on getting trotted out. Oh, you hear it all the time on mainstream media. Oh, defund the police really hurt Democrats. Defund the police really hurt. Black Lives Matter really hurting the Really? Because actually, if you look at the studies, there was more voter energy because of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, because of everything that popped off after George Floyd was murdered, that galvanized people to the polls. Right? So you want to say Biden was your safe choice? No, I say that movement energy, that outside energy also propelled you into victory. So don't turn your nose and turn your back on that grassroots.
No, the corporate wing of the Democratic Party doesn't get called out enough regarding the gaslighting that they engage in on a regular basis. We all saw what happened in 2020 with these congressional races. The Democrats who lost their re-election bids were not progressives. Okay, they weren't leftists. They were the milquetoast, incredibly boring, refused to stir the pot corporate Democrats who thought that it would be a smart strategy somehow to position themselves as weaker Republicans in their races. And guess what? They lost. They lost. Because if you're a voter in that district and you get to choose between an actual Republican and a watered down Republican, just go for the Republican. Just go for the Republican, right? I mean, and I remember the media propaganda leading up to these congressional races. All of the fear mongering regarding AOC. Oh, looks like AOC might not win. Oh, looks like Ilhan Omar might not win. Looks like Rashida Tlaib might not win. They won by massive margins, massive margins. So don't come at me and tell me that, it's that progressive messaging that doesn't really sit well with voters. No, that's not what actually played out during the 2020 election. And anyone who tries to say otherwise is just a liar who refuses to accept reality, but I think more importantly is intentionally gaslighting people, because in order to be honest, they'd have to accept reality, and reality doesn't sit well with their corporate donors. That's what this is really about.
Totally. Yeah, they want people to go back to brunch so bad. They want middle of the road candidates to sort of appease, high rolling Democrats, comfortable Democrats, Democrats who, really don't need healthcare because they've got it all, in the bank, whatevs. They want to appease that base of donors and have them all go home and just sort of bury your head in the sand, Whereas like, especially now, man, you're listing off all the things that Nina Turner is for. Now, we're in a night and day moment when it comes to the health of our economy and the literal health of our people after this pandemic and during this pandemic. What kind of policies do you think are going to support the American people going forward? Are they gonna be trickle down economic policies? Are they gonna be means tested policies? Or is it probably a safer bet? Is there a bet if we support the social safety net going forward and so that, people can go see a doctor without being stuck with a, $100,000 bill? Like, what are we really talking about here? But Dems want us to all go night-night, all take a little nap, and let them just keep on doing their dark money wheelings and dealings and never get called out on anything.
Look, I mean, just a few more, I know we're running out of time, but just a few more parts of this article that I think are relevant because, look, New York Times, Washington Post, typically when they cover these types of races, I get salty, Cenk gets salty because they frame things in a way that's unfair to the left. However, in this case, there were excerpts that I was actually very fond of, including this one. Brown, Shontel Brown, has the most reliable voters, many of them older, more affluent, and white. Also, they write that Brown, with an easygoing demeanor, pushed back hard against the characterization of her as a Washington puppet. And then they followed that with this excerpt. Her campaign is staffed by help from SKDK, a powerhouse Democratic political firm stocked with old hands from the Clinton and Obama days. Her endorsements include moderate House Democrats like Representative Gothamer, many of whom are motivated by Turner's favorable statements on Palestinian rights. Going back to what you were saying a little earlier, Francesca, about how Nina Turner standing up for Palestinians has also turned off some of these corporate Democrats and their donors. So that's encouraged them to get involved in this race as well.
I mean, and for once, they're not relying on just sort of empty identity politics because Nina Turner herself is a black woman, So in a sense, what you're saying is, yeah, you want diversity, you just don't want diversity that's actually gonna fight. Cool. I just wanna make sure that's what moderate Democrats are saying. They want diversity they can handle. And look, it speaks to the Congressional Black Caucus, which a lot of black progressives in Congress and out have understood that they have long been irrelevant, that they have not had the fire that they had when they initially were formed. And a lot of people across the country are disappointed in their black leadership and say, nah, we actually have black leadership. We need more of it. We need more Cori Bushes and Ayanna Presleys. Those are the people that we want to empower. Jamal Bowman, etc. Right? Like we got that, but you all who've like had your grasp on leadership and power need to step aside.
Yes.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.